Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Twin Peaks time again, and this was a great episode. And finally got that moment where our boy Cooper is back in the saddle again, so to speak. I'll get to that as we get through the episode, but yeah, let's just say that particular moment, had me verbally expressing my pleasure and excitement, out loud. At that moment, I'm like, finally, yes! We can get on to the showdown, so to speak. But yeah, let's get started. It was a solid episode. And we start off with Doppelganger Dale and Richard Horne traveling. Not really too much conversation going on, I guess. I thought there would be some pretty lengthy conversation between the two of them about back history, but I guess after the fact it makes sense that there wasn't. I'm assuming they're in Washington State right now, because as we know, Jerry Horne stumbles upon the scene, and there's no way he's running that far away from his home base. I guess Diane's been giving him coordinates, but there's, I guess, 3 different locations, and he's got the ones for 2 of them, or something. I think that was what the situation was, and one of the coordinates location is apparently on the side of the road by this giant stone that's sitting up on a hill. So he sends Richard unknowingly to with the phone, I guess, with the coordinates to match up with the spot on the rock and get a beep when that happens. Well, and as Jerry Horne watches in horror, Richard gets basically disintegrated, which I don't know if through some kind of electrical shock, or force field, or whatever. So I'm assuming that was meant for Dale, or Doppelganger Dale. And interesting little comment he makes after Richard has been disintegrated essentially, and he says basically that mentions my son. And this and if this going along with an assumption I'll make towards the end, where the mother of Richard Horne is concerned, a scene at the end, I kind of have a creepy feeling that Doppelganger Dale may have gotten up to some illegal, no-good activity when he visited Audrey in the hospital when she was in her coma, if you know what I'm saying. If he literally means that that's actually his son. I don't know why they would mention it in any other fashion, as far as, that using that word. So that may indeed have been the union of Audrey Horne in a coma and Doppelganger Dale. I won't read too much into it, but we haven't been shown who the potential father is outside of that. So yeah, which mean that Richard would have been from get-go would have been kind of destined to a dark path, so to speak. But yeah, like I said, I'm just going to go under the assumption that Richard is actually the fathered by Evil Dale until we get any evidence otherwise. And poor Jerry, he's, like I said, wouldn't it have been hilarious if he ended up stumbling upon the Black Lodge, and here he goes stumbling upon a supernatural event dealing with a denizen or someone that came out of the lodge, and blaming it all on the binoculars. Poor Jerry. He needs to swear up the marijuana before he goes completely off the rails. All right, so in the next scene, old Gary and Chantal are hanging out. They're undercover, I guess, as painters or something, house painters, waiting for Dougie to get home so they can finish their assassin mission. But unfortunately, there's a little bit of company there with the FBI scouting out the spot, but I don't see that door to that house didn't look red to me, so I don't even know if they're even at the correct location. They, like I said, the red door was the giveaway that it was the house that Dougie and Ginny and family were living in. And this scene, as you know, is going to develop into something pretty damn hilarious, and it gave me a weird kind of Guy Ritchie Tarantino vibe to how it played out. Kind of that, not necessarily with a lot of build up, like you would in one of those movies, but that especially, a movie like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, where we have some kind of, some showdown at the end where everybody is kind of screwed and one party comes out ahead, that are usually the one that's everyone's plotting against. So, but we'll get to that point eventually. But yeah, that was that scene coming up was hilarious. And now we're at the hospital, and looks like old Dougie Cooper ended up with a little bit of electric shock therapy, and now he's in a coma. The boss man is there with Sonny Jim and Janie E. And I think my mom said that Sonny Jim was actually a peanut butter brand from back in the day, possibly. So they may have named him after a brand of peanut butter, assuming my mom remembers correctly. And then the Mitchum brothers show up, not showing out the nice guys they are, and bring some food and beverages for everybody, to tide the family over. And then we get to the scene where we've got Lynch, or not Lynch, but, David Lynch as Gordon Cole. He's got all of his kind of electrical equipment set up there. Remember, electricity is always playing the big part, and he's got a kind of a fancy schmancy security system. So at this point, I'm curious if they're anticipating something happening. It seems that they are, as we'll see shortly. But so basically, we've got Cooper in the hospital still. He's still out, and we've got Chantel and Gary at the house staking out, and a couple of the FBI agents left behind to do the stakeout as well. And then, lo and behold, the Mitchum brothers show up with the whole big entourage of vehicles. And then right after that, we've got a guy in a Mercedes who apparently is something by that name is a Polish accountant, Zawaski, I would assume Russian or Polish, and basically says, you're blocking my driveway, and they, Gary or Chantel basically tells him, go fuck himself, and he's like, oh, all right, I'll move my car, and does a little bit of road rage action, which Chantel is, I guess, a junk food or sugar addict of some sort, so she's kind of jonesing for more junk food because they're out of chips. So she decides to take a shot at him through the windshield, and, lo and behold, instead of being a normal, accountant, like a pencil pusher, guy's got a automatic pistol, or it didn't look like an Uzi, but it looked like an automatic pistol, and decides to fire back at the Hutchins and wings her, and ends up ultimately wiping the floor with both of them with his gun and kills both of them. So the would-be assassins have been taken care of. But like I said, that whole scene really had at least a Guy Ritchie vibe to it, where you got an accountant, you got the assassins waiting there, and they're armed, and nobody messes with them. And then all of a sudden, here comes the accountant in the Mercedes that wipes him out with his automatic pistol. And then the guy ends up after doing that, probably assuming, screw it, I'm just going to go in the house and, and chill out for a while, to hell with these people. They can, rot in their vehicle. Then the FBI happens to be there at the same time. And of course, the Mitchum brothers are like, yeah, the law enforcement doesn't care for us too much. Let's get the hell out of here. So that was a hilarious scene. I hope the rest of you enjoyed it as much as I did. I think it just it reminded me very much of of Snatch or of Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels. All right, so the scene I was mentioning at the beginning, where we finally get Dale Cooper back. Wakes up out of bed, completely back with his memory of his oldest self, and apparently, as we'll see, has retained the memories and the emotional connection with Janie and Sonny Jim, and I also had kind of mentioned previously in maybe more than one episode review past that I think this was probably how it was going to play out, that Cooper was basically just going to be the father of Sonny Jim and the husband of Janie E, and just live as a family, because that's the kind of person he is. Dale is very he's got a very good intuition typically about people, and the kind of the type of person someone is, whether good, bad, or otherwise. Which he sees the Mitchum brothers as as hearts of gold. Which in the show they may have given you some reason to feel otherwise, but we see basically they got hosed on an insurance thing, and even though they were competing, the guys they were competing with, that Doppelganger Dale was in control of, were the villains typically. So they kind of get portrayed as gangsters, but I think they're just kind of just eccentric businessmen that kind of, I don't know, kind of have that gangster motif about them, but it's just kind of a initial appearance to throw us off until we learn more about who they are really as people. And interesting here, we get not only does Dale get a ring, which we saw that Ray Monroe was going to try to slip on Doppelganger's finger to get him to the lodge. So essentially, this is probably how Dale's gonna, assuming Dale wins in the end, is gonna slip the ring on Doppelganger's finger after he's killed him or whatever, incapacitated him, and that's the way he'll be sent back to the lodge. And he also mentioned something about a seed. You have the seed, and then the little golden ball is Mike shows him the golden ball, which is what became of Dougie Cooper when he was brought back to the lodge. Remember, he was a kind of a construct. He was created, or a tulpa, as we'll see later on with another character in a scene that was actually kind of shocking. For me, I didn't see it coming, but so he basically gives him a tuft of his hair and hands it to Mike interdimensionally, and then basically says you need another one. So I imagine they're either going to set up possibly set up a decoy of some kind as a means to of their end plan to try to get Doppelganger Dale back into the lodge, because he says something about the seed, so it's interesting. And we've got Dale Cooper's back. I was so happy. I was like, God damn, finally. He's just he's just the Dale we remember from the show. We've been waiting so long, because even Dale in the lodge at the beginning, up to the point where he came out and was kind of catatonic, or whatever you'd like to call it, we still hadn't gotten that same impression of Dale Cooper from season 2. The last time we saw him as the good Dale. So I was satisfied. I was like, finally, we'll get a couple episodes with Dale, just being Dale from the FBI, special agent, Blue Rose Task Force, or whatever you call it, taking care of business. And it's very satisfying. It was like, finally, we made it through 15 plus episodes, and now we finally get Dale Cooper back in action. And he's wasting no time. He knows exactly what's going on, because technically he knew what was going on up until the point where he was pulled out into the real world, to the third dimension, or whatever you want to call it. And was, like I said, had kind of memory regression or some kind of thing, or some kind of form of amnesia, I guess you would call it. And then that electricity, like I said, electricity always plays a part. He gets a serious jolt from the light or the outlet, And that basically brings him, does whatever magic needs to do to get him back to where he was. So, yeah. So he gets the family in the BMW that the missions are so kind to give to the wife. They're going to fly to Spokane. And probably, because remember, Twin Peaks, as I've said a bazillion times before, Twin Peaks is filmed in northwestern Washington, but geographically it's in northeastern Washington. It's supposed to be kind of near both the Idaho and Canadian borders. So Spokane is thus very close to where Twin Peaks are, not like kitty corner, but a lot closer to Twin Peaks, just landing there so they could get there in, a very short amount of time once they get to the airport. So driving there, they can get there really quickly. So it's convenient. Otherwise they'd probably have to go to SeaTac and drive from there, which is annoying as hell as it is, airlines these days. So, so Cooper is on the move. And we get a text from Evil Dale to Diane. And given what happened to Richard, I am wondering if she was hoping that the coordinates that she gave him, he would try out and it would actually destroy him. So, as we'll see later on, or in just a few minutes, I mean, the notion of him, or of her, Diane, working for Dale as kind of like a, willing, henchman or whatever, I think is kind of a misnomer. It's a little bit more complicated than that, and because she seemed very shocked when she got the text from him. I mean, he was just extremely shaken, and then we get play that music that we first when we first saw came into the scene, or Evil Dale came into the scene, was in that car. I think it was a Mercedes or whatever, to pick up Daria and Ray, and it was playing. So some similar theme there. And Diane, of course, has a pistol in her purse. So my initial impressions here was that she was going to go in and try to shoot. Her whole thing was she was going to go and try to kill Gordon. Basically, and that Gordon, as we see him, he's got an intuition of his own, plus he's, the security equipment, but was aware that something was up eventually when he told her to come in before she even announced herself. But I'm like, uh-oh. And then thankfully, Albert and Tammy were both there in the rooms as well, because I thought if it was just the two of them, Gordon Cole may be getting ventilated, as he once said to Shelley Johnson in one of his tales of his younger days in the FBI. All right, so this scene is pretty cool and pretty interesting on multiple levels. Basically, Diane sits down and tells them about the last night that she was with Dale, or Evil Dale, before their reunion when they were at the police station or police facility or state police, whatever, in South Dakota. That basically he came to visit her, kind of grilled her for information as far as what was going on with the Bureau. They kind of embraced and were going to, or about to kiss, or were kissing, and something went wrong, or something, kind of happened, and she got afraid. And then she looked at Dale, and saw that face, something with the face. So maybe, Bob's superimposed face, or the shadow, or whatever, kind of mixed in with Dale's, and because she was afraid, and he, of course, feeds on fear. And unfortunately, we find out that this led to Doppelganger Dale raping Diane. And then eventually taking her to one of the, what we assume is one of the Black Lodge's, serviced gas station fronts, or or door, or entrances into this other side dimension or whatever. And then she mentions, she seems to kind of, she looks at that phone again with the little smiley face, and starts to have a kind of a, I don't know if she's sitting there trying to remember exactly what happened, but she's talking about giving coordinates and being at the sheriff's station. I'm not sure if she means the sheriff's station in Twin Peaks, or if she just means the sheriff's station where they were, in another town. I'm not sure exactly. I'm assuming I would think of the Twin Peaks sheriff's station, but maybe not. And then she says that, she starts to, kind of act like she's not, says, I'm not me. I'm not me. So we've almost got a situation that was kind of similar to the one where Gordon and Philip Jeffries entered the hotel room where the woman was on the floor and the woman holding the gun was the same person. Something, I don't know if that's is the same thing as having the doppelganger or not, because it just appears to me that something, as we see Diane is shown to ultimately be, after being shot at by Tammy and Albert, to be one of those similar constructs like Dougie Cooper, where it's hilarious. Mike says, you were, manufactured for a purpose or whatever he says. And she says, yeah, no shit. Then starts to, crack and her break apart, and the black kind of smoker, energy releases from her neck or whatever. And then she, basically comes lightning, or not light, but bright light shines, and Mike, covers his eyes. And the same process that happened with Dougie Cooper. And then we see that gold ball, or ball bearing or bead or whatever it is, and then we find out that Diane was essentially, or at least this version of Diane was essentially just the same, a construct of sorts, which is really weird, because it makes you wonder if there's another. There's Diane's actual self is still out there, or if Diane herself was killed and replaced by this construct or tulpa or whatever. So we're getting into some more of the supernatural, new introduced supernatural elements of the show that weren't dealt with really in season 1 and 2, or the movie to be sure. So I'll have to kind of go through, and after the season's over, and try to maybe come up with some ideas or theories. Hopefully we'll get enough information in the following couple episodes that we can, ultimately we can get an idea of what that is, because I don't want to call it a doppelganger or a person in their shadow self. Because like I said, Dougie Cooper at some point was created, and it looked like when what Dale refers to as the seed was, something created by the denizens of the lodge, or by someone in the lodge, like Mike or whoever, that had the power to do that. And then he, as we see, I'm pretty sure Dale pulled a tuft of hair off the back of his head to give to him. So, I don't know. That begs the question of whether or not Diane is still alive, or was she killed and replaced by this construct that was given memories of Diane's life or whatever. Or I don't know. It's like I said, it creates quite a bit of confusion. So if I'm overthinking it, and any of you that have watched it have a better explanation of what Diane and Dougie Cooper are as far as these constructs are, if they're doppelgangers, or if they're something completely unique. And where exactly Diane is now, feel free to throw it down in the comment section. I always like to hear alternate theories, because I'm not completely sure. I'm by no means the be-all, end-all expert of Twin Peaks lore and whatnot, since it's a very complicated show and open-ended in a lot of ways with some of the theories. But it throws. I was expecting Diane to just literally just get shot and killed, and be dead, and kind of a tragic type thing, not for her to vanish back to the lodge. Didn't see a ring of any kind on her finger. At least they didn't indicate any of that. So, but like I said, I'll delve into that later on if new information arises, or I'll just have to kind of sit there and brainstorm some possibilities of what all that entails and do a little research. But we're back at the casino, and Dougie. He's not Dougie anymore. He's Dale Cooper. Finally, I can stop calling him Dougie Cooper. Dale Cooper's back. FBI Special Agent Dale Cooper. He's getting ready to head to Spokane with the Mitchum brothers, and basically he pulls his quote-unquote wife and son aside and lets him know that he's going to be back. He's got to leave for a while, and that essentially he's not Dougie. And, of course, Sonny Jim's kind of, he's distraught. And he kind of has a similar moment to Donna. If you notice, when he says, "You're my daddy," "You're my dad," type of thing. So that's immediately, though, the same words, and that's just kind of reminding me of Donna, because remember, Ben Horne is her father, and but Doc Hayward is the one that raised her. So as far as that, he's concerned, that's his dad. So he promises to come back and basically just going to live with them as a family, and that's kind of what I predicted, like I said earlier, what would happen. Because, he's getting rid of this evil that's been in the world. Hopefully, both the doppelganger and Bob to some degree. I don't know if Bob can ever be destroyed. That's the thing. And remember, Leland was asked Dale to find Laura. So maybe Laura and Bob will have some kind of a showdown in the last episode of epic, world-shattering proportions. That'd be kind of cool. So not Doug. It's going to take me a little bit to stop referring to him to that, but Dale tells the Mitchum brothers basically that he's an FBI guy that's been missing for 25 years, and kind of gives him the rundown, and he makes him happy and says, you don't have to worry about it, being around law enforcement, and you guys have both of you have hearts of gold, so. And Candy's, of course, they really do. Too funny. And Jim Belushi there drinking his Bloody Mary. Just like, Sarah Palmer. There's another, variable that has to be dealt with in the last 2 episodes of this season, which I'm assuming are the last 2 episodes we're going to get. I hope not, but... it's probably, maybe, I don't know, they might be longer episodes. I'm not sure. I think, I'll have to look at the schedule, but I think the last 2 episodes may air on the same day as one big, long finale. And if that's the case, that'd be cool, because that means we can get to it and watch it a little bit faster. And then, if you weren't aware, that is Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam playing at the Roadhouse, which isn't surprising. I think they gave his... I don't know. I don't know if that Eddie Vedder is a stage name, or if that's his birth name, or the name they gave was his birth name, or if it was just like an alias for that episode or whatever. But Eddie Vedder maybe is a stage name. I'm not a huge Pearl Jam fan, so I don't know too much about Eddie Vedder's personal life. But he plays a pretty cool song. It was pretty interesting, and makes sense. Pearl Jam and being a band from Seattle, representing the local cultural scene, and he's been around for quite a long time. And then we see another very odd happenstance. It is Audrey and Charlie show up at the bar. And then all of a sudden we get Audrey's theme, which, if you remember from the first season, and that's kind of weird jazzy number that... she likes to dance to, because she's kind of a quirky, enigmatic character that, and it's a Lynch universe, so we always have that kind of weirdness going on. And she goes out on the floor and starts doing her kind of goofy dance to it, and Charlie's watching, and then some guy runs across the dance floor and attacks some other dude. And then all of a sudden, we get a bit of a electrical disturbance of sort, and all of a sudden we see Audrey looking in a mirror, not, looking like she may actually be possibly in hospital gowns or in bed or something or other. So this begs to, the questions beg to be asked was all of this that Audrey was experiencing in her head as she was in a coma, and did she just wake up from that coma? That's what I'm wondering, because the whole scenario of her married to that guy and her dress like that and looking and all that, and then all of a sudden, you know, Audrey's dance, like Audrey Horne's, you know, song or whatever, like they would know that at the Roadhouse. Like she didn't really hang out at the Roadhouse ever. That wasn't really her scene. So it's almost like that was a dream she had, and then, oh, Audrey's out there, you know, it's Audrey, and all eyes are on Audrey, and she's, you know, doing her kind of goofy dance to her theme song, which it's not listed in the credits as being her theme song, or was ever mentioned in anything else as being Audrey's song, as far as I know. So, yeah, Audrey may have just woken up from a coma, possibly, and if that's the case, as I am going to make in the assumption that it is, then Evil Dale, it did indeed visit her and take advantage of her in a comatose state, assuming that Richard Horne is actually the union of the two of them. So don't hold me to it as it being absolute canon and absolutely what happened, but and like I said, if you saw something differently than I did on that fact, and you think, you know, and you see it a little clearly, and you got a, you know, kind of cut and dry explanation of what all that was about, then yeah, post it in the comments, guys. I appreciate the feedback, and challenge me on things that you think I got wrong that are incorrect. You know, I can take it. Not thin-skinned in any stretch of the imagination where that goes, because I want my overall analysis of the show to be accurate. So if I miss stuff, then say, hey, you know, knucklehead, you missed it. This was quite obvious, exactly what was going on here, and you missed the mark. And then I always appreciate it. So yeah, 2 more episodes to go. I think, if I recall looking at the schedule, they are going to be aired on the same day. So I may have just a super long 1-hour final review of the 2 episodes, assuming I need to take that much time. And then I'll probably do a season recap episode, and just to kind of, I'll probably just do a marathon viewing of everything and make some notes and tie some things together and come up with some final thoughts and whatnot. So hope you enjoyed it, folks. Dale Cooper is back. Oh, that's right. I one thing I forgot that was an impression, like when they were, I want to mention before I sign out. When Dale was talking to Janie and Sonny Jim at the casino, and, you know, hugged him and said he'd be back, when he was walking away, I was like, Dale, please turn around and throw the thumbs up to the kid and your wife, just, you know, in classic Dale Cooper fashion, because he hasn't done that yet. I just wanted to see him, like, just, you know, the camera just pan to him, from them to him, and him just kind of turn on the heel and just throw up the thumbs up sign, and, you know, that cocky, confident smile on his face, and then walk on. That would have been, hit the nail on the head perfectly. But other than that, it was an awesome episode. Like I said, Dale Cooper's back, and I'm looking forward to his showdown with his evil half. And we'll, hopefully, good will triumph over evil in the world of Twin Peaks. And not leave us on another cliffhanger like we did with season 2, I hope, unless they are planning on bringing it back for another season. So until then, folks, take care and take it easy.